Okay, calling the, March meeting of the Water and Wastewater Commission to order. I understand, do we have somebody on Zoom? Is there somebody on Zoom? I'm guessing not. Oh. And Mike's just on time. Great. Okay, all right. I'll hold on. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, I understand. Is there a Kelly Zemesk on Zoom? Hello? If there is someone that wants to speak, we're going to be having the public forum right now. I'm not sure if you wanted to speak or if there was just going to be listening to the meeting. Well, I'm not hearing anybody, so John, let's get started with the water.
Sure. The first item I have on the agenda is just a update with staffing levels. We have hired 3 people. One of them does have some construction experience and does have a CDL license and hoisting license, but not a drinking water license. And the other 2 are, don't really have a lot of experience at all in the stuff, but we hired them as LMEOs and hopefully we'll be able to train them. We've got them into drinking water classes, but we did hire 3, but we had another one leave for more money. So it's kind of a revolving door, one of our more senior people. So that's kind of a tough hit to take because he was kind of acting as a foreman. And we just posted the foreman position. I was hoping he would apply for it. And as it turned out, he ended up departing. So we have, at the end of the month, we'll have had 3 retirements on the treatment side. We have 6 treatment operators and 1 chief operator. And then we only had 1 applicant for the chief operator position, and we're working on that internal applicant, filling that position with him. But that still leaves us with 3 vacancies in treatment. So we posted and advertised again for treatment personnel, but nobody with a license or any experience applied. And that's one place we really have a tough time training, being, involved with the chemicals and everything like that. So we'd like to at least see them have a T1 license. There's T1 through T4. We're a T4 system, but at least if they had a T1, it's something we could, could work with. But so we had a meeting today and talked about a bit and just, trying to get the salaries up, with the coming on union negotiations, make that a priority so that hopefully not only can we retain people, but also attract them. But has me a bit nervous, having, only 3 out of essentially 6 operators. The chief operator won't be in that operator role. I mean, he can kind of fill in, but that's not what he does. He kind of manages everything. So it puts us in a bit of a tough spot. So we'll get through it. But I just want to let you know it is very difficult out there. And we have talked to other water systems. They're experiencing the same thing. I talked to DEP. It's the same thing. They're all having a tough time filling these positions. So we're not unique to that, but we're just at a little bit of more of a disadvantage because our pays haven't really kept up with some of the issues with the contract and getting a new one negotiated. So, but hopefully we're having some meetings this month. At the end of the month, we'll be with the union. Hopefully we can move forward with that. So. Next item on the agenda, which is a positive thing, is the Oak Hill water storage tank. We need to replace that. It's the last of our storage tanks that needs to be replaced from the 1960s. We did get notified that more than likely it's on the intended use plan from Mass DEP, the draft 2022 intended use plan. That's on the first handout that I provided on page 4. You can see that Fitchburg's on there for $2.75 million. That involves the work at the Oak Hill storage tank and also putting mixers in a couple other tanks just to prevent ice formation. So that's a good thing because there is some loan principal forgiveness on that as well. That's something like 14 to 17%. So that would certainly help us. So I'd like to have authorization. I'll have to go before City Council, to approve the borrowing through SRF. So I just was hoping to get the Commission's vote to approve, basically accepting that loan and going for that loan for the SRF funds for $2.75 million.
Okay, so the motion you're looking for is?
To approve borrowing $2.75 million for the SRF program. That sound all right, Nick?
And again, is that a recommendation to the city council? Is that,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to make a motion to recommend to City Council to borrow $2.75 million from the DP SRF loan program for the Oak Hill Water Storage Tank Replacement Project. And that's on the draft intended use plan and will likely receive final approval, I think this summer. It's usually a June or July timeframe. So I'm guessing it will get approved as it's listed in its draft form.
okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Discussion on the motion.
Cost, have we been quoted on the project?
I believe Weston & Sampson's prepared a proposal for the engineering design work. Have they put together a cost estimate for construction yet?
Yeah, it is 2.75, so, yeah. We've gone out to bid. The bids are due on April 14th, so.
So, coming from the private sector versus municipality, the bid gets accepted, costs continue to increase, what happens with overruns and, you know, I just read an article in the newspaper about
They've actually,
school in Lowell and how it's just blown up, and how do we have measures to protect from?
yeah, I mean, Weston Sampson's actually figured that in because they're, you know, concerned about the cost increases. So they've actually figured in this project was going to be about 1.75 million a couple of years ago. So now we're at 2.75 with the cost increases that they're forecasting for the coming construction season. And there's only a couple companies that actually do this type of work. So they've been in contact with them just to make sure that, you know, their pricing is in line with, you know, what the project would have cost. So we're pretty comfortable with that amount.
So were we quoted a couple of years ago?
No, that was the initial cost when we were looking at, you know, moving forward with this and doing the design. So that's how much it's gone up in the last 2 or 3 years, so.
Right, so Weston & Sampson that we were working with has been in contact with these tank vendors for the past several years. So a couple of years ago when we were issued the ACO, this tank replacement was on that list. And at that time, we talked with Weston & Sampson. They kind of walked us through the design options, and they reached out to the tank vendors, got pricing and all that. And they've been in contact with them this whole time. So they've seen that original cost that they were recommended by the tank vendors jump from the 1.75 up to where we're at now. So they've been keeping track of those increases and talking to these vendors.
Yeah, this had been programmed into our capital improvement plan for this coming year, so we just, you know, could have only absorbed so much in the last few years with other projects we had to do that, you know, were prioritized. But, you know, at the time when we were figuring out the capital improvement plan, you know, we had, like Nick said, we had talked to Weston Sampson, and it was going to be, you know, just under 2 million. So you know, the extra money is due to the cost increases, which they've, you know, figured in. So we should be fine, you know, going forward with it. So.
So our costs have gone up 60% in a couple of years?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's gouging somebody, huh?
Yeah, no, to be honest, we're getting hit with cost increases across the board for everything. It's just unbelievable.
I see it in the private sector. We all see it in our pockets, but 60% is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, no, we're just seeing, you know, even water main projects are gone up quite a bit. I mean, they're having issues finding laborers, you know, not just the materials, but filling those positions and stuff and having to pay more. So it's tough. It's tough. Sure.
Thank God we have a never-ending stream of tax money that the taxpayers unfortunately have to bear the burden of for these projects. Just trying to shed a little humor.
It's not that funny, though.
Any other discussion?
I assume the two tank is DN tank and preload?
Yeah, there's not too many, there's nobody else really, so that's pretty much it, so, you know. And that's why it's kind of a unique project. It's not gonna be your typical, you know, pre-stress where they wrap the wires around. It's actually gonna be inside the bedrock. You know, part of the wall is gonna be formed against bedrock, so it's a fairly complicated project, you know, and that's some of the additional costs, not all of it, you know, that 60% is, inflation. I'd say 30 or 40% probably, but the other part is due to, extra complexity of the project too. They thought they'd be able to fit it in up there on top of that hill, but we can't raise the tank too much, because of the way it would end up being fill, and it was just too much. There's a hydraulic grade line that we have to meet, and we can't change that too much. Then it would alter the pump stations, the pumps, and we'd have to redo those, and there's just a lot to it. So some of it is, not just 60% isn't just, inflation, probably 30 to 40%, and the rest of it is due to some, additional complexity, fitting it in that site. Tough site, we're at the top of a mountain, basically. I know it's a small mountain, but it's just all ledge, and it's just no room there, just drops off so much on all sides, so.
Is there a more befitting place for the tank that might be more cost effective?
No, not unless we'd have to build, something like elevated like Gardner has someplace else, but that would even be more money. Then we'd have to find a new site, relocate the water mains, the feeding and stuff. It all fits within the distribution system, so that would be, add probably a couple more $1 million to it at least, so.
Is Flat Rock tank online?
Overlook?
Overlook, I'm sorry.
Yeah, oh yeah. That feeds the high system, and the Oak Hill tank just feeds the Oak Hill system up around the golf course area, so. It's about a little under $500,000 gallon tank, so.
And Weston and Sampson did look at a couple different options a couple of years ago when we first started
Yeah.
going down this road. They looked at like a bolted steel tank and some other design configurations, but this was kind of what fit the existing infrastructure out there. The concern with like a steel tank is it's located at the top of a hill with potential for lightning strikes and all that, so that was a concern.
Yeah, there's been a lot of going back and forth in the last year, just trying to figure out the least expensive option. It wasn't just, this is what we're plugging in. I mean, we looked at all different, those, like Nick said, those glass line steel tanks, and trying to fit something like that up there, because that'd be less expensive, but then you'd have more maintenance down the road, and, we costed out what it would be over time, and this really is the least expensive option, especially for long-term maintenance, so we don't have to worry about painting it or anything like that, so.
No rate increase required?
No, but we need to do a rate study, and we'll be working on that. This is probably the final thing that we can fit in under the previous rate, so we're at the limit here.
We don't have things retiring, loans retiring that can kind of,
That's allowed us to do this work, actually, it figured in, that allowed us to do these, but that's it, so, we tried to keep the rates. I mean, we haven't had a rate increase in quite a few years, so that's really pretty, I think it's impressive, because we've been able to hold this line for this long and, level fund the budget, and still do this work. That's thankfully due to the loans expiring, but, we can't just keep borrowing like crazy, because we're not getting the rates like we used to, 0% and stuff, so they're lower interest rates, but it's just not the way to go, so.
thank you.
Plus, we're gonna get hit, we're already, like I said, we're already seeing increases in materials and things, chlorine gas went up 30%, instead of $270 for a 150-pound center, it's $360, just, we use a few of those each week at each plant, so, of course, fuel oil and things like that, I mean, it's not just gonna impact, residents, but it's gonna impact our operations as well, so. All right.
Further discussion? Take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The next thing I have on the agenda is a application for a drinking water supply protection grant. This is the Curlinger property. It's in Ashby. It's one of the handouts I had. The first page is the budget, and then the second and third pages are maps of where the property is located. It actually, I show Fitchburg Reservoir on the first map, but it's actually in the watershed. It flows down to the watershed for Lovell, which is our terminal reservoir before the fluid treatment plant. So the appraisal came in. We're going to actually purchase a CR on the property for 49.43 acres. They did have enough, I think, for 3 additional lots there, A&R lots along the road, so it actually, the appraised value went up because of that, but I didn't want them, they had asked about taking out a lot or two, but if you look on the mapping, you'll see that there's a Zone A for a stream on the property that is up in the area where one of the lots would develop, so I was able to, persuade them that, they could keep the existing house there, you know, the property there, but we wouldn't allow any more house lots to be cut out of it at the roadside. So the purchase of the CR on the 49.43 acres is $273,000. We already had the appraisal done. Having said that, I also didn't want to, it's a 50% grant, so we would have had to come up with half of the, you know, half of that amount. I actually was able to negotiate that we would only contribute $80,000 and they will donate the rest, you know, $56,500. So our cost will be $80,000. There's some unreimbursable costs. We got to do surveys and things like that. So the net cost for protecting the property, the 49.5 acres, is about $95,280, and the total project is $291,000 everything. So I think we're doing pretty well in that respect. So, and it's kind of it butts portion of it abuts the Jewel Hill project that we the land that we protected a couple of years ago. So in that line, our reserve for land protection costs that we have is about $292,000, so we'll still have $200,000 left over after this project. So if we do get the grant, are able to protect it. So I think it's a good property to get because of there, you know, was A&R lots that could have been developed in that zone A or near that zone A, and I really think that, you know, because of the slope of the land and things like that, I'd like to see those prevented. The back land wasn't quite so developable without a subdivision and the steepness, but it's the A&R lots along that zone A that we want to protect. And in addition, we have restrictions on the property where then there's not going to be any, you know, farming or we've had some issues with horses and, you know, manure disposal in zone A's or any other reservoir and stuff that we had to deal with. So part of that CR that won't be allowed to have any, you know, type of, you know, animals like that. You know, of course, people can have dogs and things like that and some chickens, but we just don't want a large farmstead with a bunch of horses and trails all cut through there. So I asked for that additional, you know, restriction in the CR. So just to make sure that we're fully protected up in those areas. So the horses and the cows, and particularly the horses, I know a lot of people have them there. They're fine, but some people don't necessarily keep those areas away from, you know, critical areas that, you know, will impact our reservoirs. So we want to make sure that we protect that. So I would be looking forward approval tonight. I'll have to go to City Council for this to get approval, but to allow me to pursue the drinking water supply protection grant with this budget. And using the $80,000 plus it's $95,280 with everything we'll have to come up with out of the land protection account for this project.
Okay, so we're looking for approval to recommend to the city council. We're looking for a motion to recommend to the city council to approve up to $95,280.
Correct.
For the conservation restriction on the Curlander property? Is that what we're looking for?
Yes.
Anybody want to make that motion? Motion, do we have a second? We have discussion.
Just to clarify, what account is being used for the 95,280? That's an existing account that we have for land acquisition and CRs and whatnot?
Yep. It's something that was dedicated after the city was a number of years ago, so sold the conservation restriction themselves on the northern watershed land to open up to hunting and fishing. So we actually ended up with more after the last land preservation projects. We had like 230 something thousand. We ended up with like 60,000 more with all our reimbursements and everything, more than we would have had before. So we're actually doing pretty well in preserving that account. So like I said, we still have 200,000 to do that, to, you know, and if anything else comes along. So, but that's the only thing that account can be used for, is for land protection. So this fits in with that, you know, that use.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that it's not coming out of like our general operation and maintenance.
Yeah, it's not
budget.
taken away from water mains or personnel or anything like that. It's something that's dedicated to this, and just, you know, the water division and cities held on to just for these type of situations.
Thank
Further
you.
discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The last item on my agenda is, I just wanted to present the budget this evening, and, you know, I'll give you to the next meeting to look it over. So there's not really any major changes to it from last year. There's some little adjustments here and there, but for the most part, everything's pretty much level funded there's a couple items that may have changed a bit, but nothing of any significance, so, yeah, like I said, I just wanted to give it to you and have you, have some time to look over in the next month, and then next meeting I'd ask for, recommendation for approval, but for tonight I don't need anything, so.
Okay. Anything else?
No, what I can do is I'll forward this week, as long as I don't forget, maybe Jennifer, she's very good at reminding me to do stuff, so I'll forward our debt schedule, just so you have that too, to review with the budget. I think that would be helpful, just to see where we're at with that portion of it, so. But, yeah, I think that's it, so. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay, Mark, you're up.
The first item I have is the Westminster intermunicipal agreement. I have copies up there. I left
There's copies to,
yes, for people that need some. We've been talking
does
about
everybody have a
this.
copy of this? Yep. Okay, looks like we all have copies and got extras here.
Yeah, we've been mentioning this for the last few months. This is going to allow Westminster to divert some of their flow from the Route 31 metering station over to the Route 2A metering station, which is not going to be any impact to the treatment system. And the next part is going to extend this agreement for 2 years. So this will give them and us time to study it to see if we can allow them to increase their flow to the plant. So this gives us a little breathing room. So that's my first thing, is approval for this.
What we're looking for is a motion to approve the extension of the intermunicipal agreement. Would you like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second? Discussion.
So just to clarify, once this approval is made, then it does have to go to City Council for final approval. And then once that happens, we'll ask yourself and the mayor to sign, and the city solicitor, and then it'll go to Westminster for final execution. So there's still another step in the process after this, but the goal would be to send it to City Council after this approval.
Yeah. So to clarify that motion, the motion is to recommend City Council to approve. Okay.
Yes.
You'll get that straight.
Well,
They always have the ultimate say.
You'll need to sign it and approve it too, and then City Council, yeah. So it's like approving and signing, and
Okay.
also
All right, so
recommending to City Council.
Okay, then the
to
motion
approve
is
and
correct
sign.
that we are approving this, but the City Council also needs to approve it.
Correct,
Okay,
yep.
so the motion is correct, it does not need to be changed.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
I have a question. Do we charge Westminster as the
Yes.
city of Fitchburg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that not in this contract, or is?
It's extending the same rate that we're charging them, and that rate is tied to our rate, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, and just to further clarify, so the city signed an intermunicipal agreement with Westminster back in, I believe it was 95. And this is still technically operating under that intermunicipal agreement, and this is the third amendment. So the other two previous amendments altered the language in various forms and extended the dates out till actually just a couple days ago. So right now, there's currently no existing contract, so this will be basically an amendment to make sure that the contract that intermunicipal agreement that expired a couple days ago gets extended.
Do they pay a rate that's equivalent to what a residential or commercial rate is in the city?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think the rate is equivalent to what we pay, but the rate is paid based on the meter that comes into the city rather than metered. So we're getting paid 100% of what comes in versus the way we bill our city
Right.
by the
The
water
rate's the
usage.
same.
Yeah.
Right.
We've
Yeah,
got
so there's-
meters, we've got meters at the border that is what we're charging for.
Yeah, there's two metering stations, one on Route 31 and one on 2A, and they pay based on the flow observed through those 2 meters. I believe they handle their own billing for the Westminster residents that actually send flow to us. So they're allowed, I believe, to charge more than we charge them. That's under their, at their discretion, so.
Because they're
It's actually,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's actually pretty good, because you guys are also getting paid for infiltration inflow that comes through those meters too, versus, the city, is only charging the customers for what's going through their water meter. We bill 100% of the water, the usage through the water meter, whereas what's coming from Westminster, they're recovering all the costs of treating all that water coming down, and sewage as well, of course, which is the main part of it, but,
Right, that's a good point, yeah.
yeah, no, it's good,
They're responsible for their piping and distribution.
Right, right.
How many years has Fitchburg been accepting from Westminster?
1998 is the date I see here. It began.
Does the, is there any language that protects us from the exorbitant increases in cost that we're seeing with everything?
Their rate goes up if our rate goes up.
Right. But our overall costs for everything are going up, right? I know we're not having a rate increase to our residents, but, you know, our costs for everything are going up, right? Fuel, electricity, I mean, there isn't anything that's going up. So are there any provisions for that? Or it's just, hey, if we go up, theirs goes up?
I believe it just if we go up, theirs goes up. I think we're going to need to go up based on all the extra costs that we're seeing. So we've got a proposal for a rate study from Weston and Sampson right now. We're reviewing it. So that's on the water and the wastewater side. So I think we need to do our due diligence to make sure that if we're seeing our costs go up in order to recover those costs, both with City of Fitchburg revenue and Westminster and Lunenburg, then we need to raise our rates, and they'll do so accordingly.
Further discussion? Have a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Right, the next item I have is an update on the staffing. We've had two retirees, or two retires since the first of the year. The first one was on January 1st, the second one was on March 1st. Since then, or since the last one, we've hired one person to replace one of the vacancies. It was an in-house promotion, so we're gonna have to backfill one of the maintenance slots. And the next operator vacancy, we're hoping to interview next week. We got 6 applicants, so we'll see if they are still interested in see what we can do with them. Our plant chemist is retiring this Friday. We have an in-house candidate looking to take that one over, and we interviewed him yesterday. So it looks like we're going to go that route with the in-house candidate, but as always, we're gonna have to backfill his position. So we seem to be shuffling cards, John and I.
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure.
Well, just to clarify, at the wastewater plant, there's a separate union that isn't connected to the water personnel, so just so everybody is aware of that, so their pays are a bit higher.
Yeah.
It's always been that way for a while. Water
So
hasn't
they
been
get 6
paid.
applicants, you get none?
What's that? He's
They
getting,
get 6 applicants, you get none? Is that-
yeah,
yes.
no, that's kind of the way it works, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, historically, wastewater's always gotten, the personnel's gotten a higher thing, because they've been around longer, I mean, wastewater plants were,
It's a romantic field. Wastewater.
so.
I have a question.
Yeah, it's just tough having 2 different unions and, some, with salaries significantly kind of works against us in some ways, ours being lower, but not that we're competing for the same people, of course, but.
Question for both of you. Is there any kind of pipeline or a way that you bring it up? I mean, partnering with local colleges or vocational?
Yeah, we've talked to vocational schools and sometimes that helps, but for us, it's like even when we do train somebody, they've left, for a higher pay someplace else, so we just need to try to get our rates of pay up to be more competitive. So we hate to be a training ground because it's a lot of institutional knowledge you gain in like 3 or 4 years of work in there, in addition to get your licenses, so we hate to keep doing that, so we really need to do that. But yeah, we've worked with Monty, we have tours and, reach out to technical schools and try to, if there's anybody that's interested to hire them. We have summer programs too. It's been tough the last couple of years with COVID. We haven't had so much, we haven't been lucky with hiring people for the summer months, but plus they're even paying high school kids quite a bit of money to work at the grocery stores or McDonald's or something, it's tough competing, so. Yeah, I would like to see more people because it is a good field to get into. I mean, we need to increase our rates, but it just, it's a very secure job, no matter what happens. And, if somebody does spend their time and gets their licenses, they can move up and just, there's a lot of, upward mobility over time. So sometimes people aren't that patient though, but unfortunately.
Yeah, for us, we find that it's the lack of knowledge that we're there for a lot of people. You know, they don't think of wastewater or water right off the bat. So we've been doing outreach to try to increase that with the schools. There is one organization that we just found last year, was called the Excel program out of Boston, where actually they train wastewater operators. You know, and then they look for job placement with them. They've been working with us for tours of the plant. The only problem we're finding is we're so far from Boston that any of these candidates have to commute for a long ways in order to work here, but it's getting the word out and making people aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I was at a meeting this morning with the Chamber of Commerce where and I'll get you the information, because they're talking about all the funding that's coming in because of the pandemic. There is a lot of funding that's going to the schools, and what they're trying to channel that to is to get the schools to have the curriculum to fill the jobs that are needed. And that might be an opportunity if there's funds available to hire teachers to teach the programs that we need to fill our workforce, then I'll get you the information on the presentation this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The next item I had was we had an SSO event on March 6th. And what happened was the city received a phone call that evening that there was customers affected with blockage and a backup. And we found out that on the old Siemens property, where the Amazon warehouse is being turned into, the site people there damaged a manhole and actually filled it full of construction debris, when then it backed up into people's houses. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that we're aware of that were affected by it. We'll probably find out more as people maybe on vacation may come home and find stuff. But we're asking anyone who was involved or who was affected by this to, you know, keep records of what they did to fix the problem. If they had to bring in cleaning companies, anything was damaged, take pictures of it, and then send it to the wastewater info email address. And then we'll forward it on to the site people from there.
So there is a belief that there's liability on the contractor?
I believe so. Yeah, we notified the EPA and the DEP. We haven't heard back from them, other than the initial, you know, when we first made it known to them, they called just to get the more details, but we haven't heard from them since. So we don't know what avenue they'll be taking with this, which probably will happen. I don't know, anything else
Well, just to add to that, so the morning after the SSO was discovered, we had our contractor, Blue Diamond Equipment Company, go out. They set up bypass pumping to pump sewage flows around that affected manhole. And that manhole is on a line that runs through the Simon Saw property, handles roughly 30% of the flow from the city. So they set up that bypass pumping just to get things flowing in the meantime, while we kind of had to diagnose and figure out what the issue was. They found the affected manholes. They cleaned that manhole, and then we had a separate company called Vortex come in through Weston and Sampson. They're one of the subs that we use through Weston and Sampson to clean and CCTV inspect both that sewer line and a parallel drainage line that runs through the site. So I believe they're finishing that work this week. They've removed a bunch of debris from that manhole and some downstream manholes and that line all the way down to the siphon that goes under the river. And I believe they removed all the debris. They didn't find any structural defects with that section of pipe or the drain line. We did find a couple of buried manhole covers between there and the downstream siphons. So we're working with Amazon's site developers and our guys to raise those manholes for future access, just so there's no issues. And if we got to get in there, we can. We've been working with Amazon's developer on figuring out who's going to pay for what. They've been very good to work with. They've agreed to pay for Blue Diamond to be out there, you know, Weston Sampson's time, Vortex's time, to do all the bypass pumping and cleanup and remediation work. They've agreed to assist with the affected property owners, so that's why we're asking anyone that's been affected by this to contact the city. We've got an email set up for the wastewater division, so they can email all their documentation and information to that email address, and we'll pass it on to the Amazon developer. I think if there's anything else. I think that's it. You know, it's just an unfortunate incident, and, you know, we're kind of taking it one day at a time, trying to resolve it.
And how do they get that email address?
Mark, do you know what the email address is off the top of your head?
I want to say it's wastewater info.
Yes.
Wastewater info, all one
At
word,
Fitchburg, MA.
at fitchburgma.gov.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
And if they didn't get that, they can call wastewater and you'll give it to them. Great.
So we've also asked the developers, working with Amazon, to mark out all of the manholes that are on the site, you know, with stakes and all that, move the equipment or material that they had stockpiled there off and away, so there's no further issues. You know, they've been cooperative with that. We also had an issue gaining access to the site that evening that the SSO was discovered. It was a Sunday night. We didn't have any contact info. We had to have, you know, our guys in the fire department out there with bolt cutters trying to cut through the fence to get in. So we've asked for the access code to the gates there, and they've given us that access code, and we have it if we need to get in there in the future.
Very good. Thank you.
The next item is the regulatory submittals. We submitted the consent decree last month, and also the IPP annual report. So those two items were completed. We haven't heard anything from the DEP and EPA on it, other than thank you. So those were done on time. Wastewater hazardous communication training from Weston and Sampson. They've completed their training program, and they're actually in the process of training the staff. We did half the crew last Friday, and we'll be doing the next half this coming Friday. And once this is done, we will then contact Department of Labor Safety and get this completed and off our to-do list.
And this was resulting from their inspection,
In
6
August,
months
I think.
ago, a year ago? And that's one of the issues they identified and asked us to move forward with, so.
Yep.
Very good.
The next item I had was, something that developed this week. I don't know if anyone heard of BioBot, but BioBot is a company that is tracing COVID within wastewater. And so we were contacted with, Steve Curry's helped set it up with the State Department of Public Health. And starting next week, we will be sampling the treatment influent 3 times a week to see what the COVID strength is coming into the plant. And this is totally funded by the state, so it's free for us. All we have to do is provide the samples and send it out the door, which is wonderful. So that was a good thing that developed this week.
That's great. Let me ask you, how is that going to be reported?
It's going to come to me, and then I'm going to send it up to people who need to hear it.
I'm just wondering, is it going to be publicized any place?
It may, I don't know. We haven't discussed that further yet.
From my perspective, that is the clearest indication of where we are. That's the only thing that you can't fake, or the only thing you can't hide.
Yeah.
So to me, if I always watch that in Boston, to worry how safe I feel, and it's wonderful to have it here.
Yes, we've been asked about it for a long time, and we just never had an answer for people. It's nice to know that.
I hope there's a way that we can figure out how to have that somewhere public.
Yeah.
Because, it's hard to trust, the reports you're getting, and you always look at numbers and you can't tell, but that's one that, to me, is absolute and you can't fake it. Yeah. That's great news.
Also, rain barrels. Just found out today, we usually do an annual rain barrel program, and that was Jeff Morosky's item that he loved to do, and we started to reach out today to find out if we want to continue doing that. So it looks like we're probably going to redo it again this year, and I'll have more information on the next meeting for that one. And I think that's it.
Any other business? Jen?
We need to approve the minutes. We skipped over that.
I'm sorry I missed. Everybody have a chance to review the minutes? Yes. Any changes, additions? Nope. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jen.
The only thing, I don't know if everybody's met, this is Colby O'Brien, he's our new commission member, so
Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
I know we're very happy to have you here. It's always good to have a full board, so.
Yes, it is nice.
Thank you.
Any other business?
Just a quick comment. Was there an issue with water or sewer recently in front of Slattery's?
Yeah, there's a water break or leak there, so,
Okay, there's a small ski mountain in the road.
yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to redo that whole area once it all settles, so we did do some shimming there to kind of clean it out, but yeah.
It's,
Some of it's frost related with the water, we're hoping that, there's still frost in the ground now, so
Yeah.
it may settle down, but once we're into May or June, we'll redo that area, so we'll probably have to pulverize a section and, or mill it and, repave it.
I just wanted to bring it up because you can just about get airborne if you hit it. Seriously.
Yeah,
It's not a
Yeah.
pothole, it's pretty
Yeah.
intense.
yeah.
That's all, thank you.
Nothing else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, next meeting.
We're adjourned. Oh, the next meeting is, where did that go? April?
20th.
Are we going to stick with the third Wednesdays? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Jen, what is the next meeting?
April 20th.
April 20th. Yeah, okay, April 20th, here, at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Very good, thanks.
Thank you.
Sure. Now, let me see if I get that.